According to Bloomberg, at least, Apple is doing some weird things with the HomePod division, so I thought we'd talk about some of the potentials of where the HomePod is going, how it's merging with Apple TV, iPads, and AirPower's still dead, by the way. Let's begin. So I think this is mainly stemming from the HomePod Mini probably selling pretty well. I'm seeing lots of people out there recommend it as just like a smart home hub, which is great for a lot of people, and they love being able to pair things to it very quickly, and sound quality is good enough, the price point is just right, so I think Apple found that real sweet spot with HomePod Mini that whatever the engineering team is that came up with it, Apple's just like hanging out with them all the time going, so, what other great ideas do you have? How do we have another smash hit on our hands? That engineering team is just like, make smart speakers cheaper. It wasn't that hard, but they're coming up with all kinds of weird things that I think could very easily never see the light of day, and it sounds like Bloomberg is saying the same things, but the one crazy one that I almost certainly think will not happen, but it would be amazing if it did, is they're claiming there's a HomePod prototype in development that has a robotic arm that you attach the iPad to, and then when you're having FaceTime calls, the robotic arm will use face tracking and follow along with you, so that obviously you set up this little HomePod stand in the kitchen and you're having a FaceTime call with someone and you want to walk to a different part of the kitchen, and as you move around the room, the robotic arm will track with you and you can have the FaceTime call going. And there's a few things I like about this. For one, it involves easily creating a dockable and no AirPlay or Bluetooth required connection where you can just have something playing on the iPad from a really good sounding speaker, and assuming it would utilize the iPad Pro connection, I guess that would kind of limit the usability of which people could have it, but that means you could dock the iPad via magnets, and using the smart connector, your little HomePod dock could be charging the iPad, and it could also give it way better sound, and also just the fact that it could swivel around like those old iMacs back in the day, and this would probably be extremely overkill. The robotic arm, I imagine, just adding so much to manufacturing complexity, and it would probably be really heavy and bulky, and this would more than likely be like a $1,000 iPad accessory, but it does sound kind of amazing just to have a little iPad dock that can move itself around and stuff. You guys know how much I love my iPad Pro and how much I want the Apple Silicon iMac to just be a big iPad on a stick. This literally sounds like an iPad on a stick, and it would mean that this HomePod, unlike the HomePod Hub we talked about a while back, it wouldn't need to provide its own display. You could utilize a display you already have, and that means that when you're having a FaceTime call and it's tracking around with you, or it's playing music, or telling you the weather, you're watching videos on it, this would be the ultimate kitchen accessory. But then when you're done, you can just yank the iPad off, it goes into rest mode and turns into a regular HomePod again, and then you can take your iPad wherever you want to go. It sounds so complicated and so crazy that I highly doubt it will actually happen, but in the back of my mind, I'm really hoping it does. I think Apple needs something a tad more crazy in the lineup and a bit more innovative than what we've seen in the smart speaker market. In merging kind of the HomePod Mini and the iPad into some type of hybrid product, I'm kind of down for. Maybe it doesn't need to be a robotic arm. Maybe there's a way you can simplify it so that you can use even older iPads, and instead of an arm, it's just like a little smart connector dock. So you drop the iPad in, and then it's just one motor that rotates the whole thing as you pivot throughout the kitchen. Probably doesn't need to be an entire robotic arm, because there's going to be rare times the iPad needs to point all the way up or all the way down. Just like slightly slanted, like the smart covers they already sell for the iPad, and then it powers the iPad, connects to it via the smart connector, and then when you're FaceTiming, it just has a little motor at the top of the HomePod that swivels. I could see that being a bit more believable than the whole robotic arm thing, but screw it. If we're getting into wish list territory, I say make both of them. For the budget iPad with the little connector on the side, make the little one motor adjustment that's not a whole arm, but then for the iPad Air and iPad Pro owners out there, they can buy a whole robotic arm that swivels around and moves, and it looks like the future, and I would be so down just for how smooth those panning shots would be in the FaceTime calls. But then they're also talking about something else that I actually think sounds a tad more believable. Bloomberg mentioned merging the HomePod into Apple TV into some type of product that would allow you to have awesome sound when watching movies or TV shows, but also that same device would be powering the TV and running tvOS in itself. So I'm well aware we've been asking for Apple to make a dedicated TV for years, even though their 32-inch one is $6,000. I'm sure if they did actually make their own panel, it would likely be well over $5,000, and I wouldn't get it for that. But I'm in favor of TVs being built in the future that have tvOS built into them. I just feel like Apple would have done that by now if they were interested. But they also talked about in this device being able to have FaceTime calls. So you could actually pick up a FaceTime coming in on your Apple ID from tvOS, and then because a camera and microphone would be built into this one device, you'd be able to talk to someone directly off of your TV, which does sound pretty nice, although it's hard to imagine just with a little TV box putting a camera in that or trying to merge it with some kind of bigger sized HomePod, which is why the way I'm interpreting this, I could be wrong, it's very speculative on my part, but I think this could be a TV soundbar, so kind of an elongated HomePod speaker that has the Apple Silicon built into it that runs tvOS and just uses one cable, probably just HDMI, to plug into your TV, runs your tvOS applications, but also you wouldn't have to set up via AirPlay or Bluetooth or whatever your sound system because it would be built into the TV box itself. They could make it look very elegant and very simple and just kind of sit on any TV stand. Very simple to plug in, and of course your Apple TV remote could control the volume directly and you don't have to worry about it being a wireless surround system. Of course you can add speakers to it, I'm sure, if you want to, but I do think there's actually some potential there. Merging the tvOS platform with the HomePod platform, which is already running a heavily modified version of tvOS, and making some kind of big soundbar that has a very subtle camera right in the center. Hopefully it's 1080p. Don't be putting no MacBook webcams in this thing. That way you can have great sound quality when you're watching your content. You don't have to have two separate devices for, oh yeah, here's my speaker power cable, here's my Apple TV power cable, and here's my TV power cable. Instead, you just have soundbar, and that's it. And that soundbar also has a little webcam in it so that if you get a FaceTime call while you're watching TV, you can answer it and people can see you from the streaming setup. And who knows, maybe with Apple Arcade, they can make some Xbox Connect style games and they can push it on you. I don't know, but I could genuinely see a market for that. It would probably be a bit more expensive, but I do think Apple has a solid audio department that knows how to make great sounding stuff in compact packages. So making some kind of media setup instead of a whole display panel, which is probably going to be very expensive and very complicated for Apple to get into, makes more sense to just start merging your Apple TVs and your HomePods into something that can fit on a lot of different media stands and allow people to take FaceTime calls. That's an Apple TV I could see them making. In fact, I hope they would. I would be somewhat interested in buying one myself. I'm curious how you guys interpret a lot of these reports. It's important to keep in mind that Bloomberg often hears things that don't end up happening. It's possible that they're just toying around in the R&D department and just seeing, what can we make? Can we make anything compelling? That's what this sounds like to me. HomePod Mini department is just going crazy right now because of how successful the HomePod Mini is, and they're trying to see how they can incorporate the HomePod into other stuff. So feel free to let me know what you guys think of all these crazy HomePod ideas. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.